talked about risk communication in general, the difference between risk and crisis communication. Now let's get even more specific and identify some characteristics of crises. All crises have common characteristics. Let's examine the characteristics of crises so that you can get a better idea of why it's necessary to prepare for a crisis. Think about the real and hypothetical crises we've discussed so far as we examine these characteristics. Remember, we've talked about the pink slime or lean, finely textured beef crisis, the Toyota recalls, salmonella contamination, and catastrophic wildfire. The first characteristic: crises are nearly always negative. They put the credibility of an organization in doubt and are almost always disruptive to the organization. Do you think this happened in the examples we looked at? The second characteristic: a crisis can change people's perceptions of the company, industry, agency involved in the crisis. In some cases, these perceptions can be improper or distorted. For example, a crisis may involve allegations that tell only part of the story and lead to negative impressions by the public about the organization. Do you think this happened in the examples we looked at? The third characteristic: a crisis generally takes the organization by surprise. The organization or agency is placed in a reaction mode, where it reacts to the situation, comments, rumors, and hostility. Was this the case in our examples? Finally, crises also imply lack of control. I think you can see from these characteristics that your agency or organization will be in a better position if you're prepared in advance for how to communicate during a crisis. Preparation is the first stage of the crisis communication plan checklist, which we'll turn to next. A crisis communication plan checklist. The checklist has 3 main parts with steps in each. Part 1, preparation, or before the crisis. The steps within this part should be taken before a crisis strikes, in preparation to communicate during the crisis. Part 2, communication during the crisis. The steps within this part are taken as the crisis is unfolding to communicate information about the crisis. Part 3, evaluation, or after the crisis. The steps within this part are taken after the crisis has ended to review and evaluate how well the crisis was communicated. Now I know it looks like a lot of information, but bear with me, it's actually pretty straightforward. I'll break it down and provide some insights from industry leaders to help illustrate the main points. There is a photo associated with each step. Try to use the photo as a sort of visual clue for the step. We'll play a short game at the end of the presentation to allow you to assess your retention of the information presented. Part 1, before the crisis, preparation. The best way to handle a crisis communication situation is to have a plan in place for managing a crisis situation. While you might not know exactly what crisis could arise, you'll be better off if your organization or agency knows who will talk with the media, the chain of command for decision making, and how communication will be managed overall. These are all extremely important. Your organization or agency's overall crisis plan should meet the organization or agency's unique needs and include a crisis communication component. The more people a crisis impacts, the more important it is to communicate to the public. Let's take a look at an industry leader's perspective on crisis communications. Edward Albanese is the Associate Director of Public Relations with the Florida Farm Bureau Federation, and he has this to say on preparing for a crisis. Although it is not possible to anticipate every conceivable crisis that your organization may face, you can prepare yourself for the most common ones. In agriculture, we have to be concerned about weather-related disasters, outbreaks of plant and insect pests, and things like bovine spongiform encephalopathy, mad cow disease. It's also important to set up communication channels and staff responsibilities that will kick in regardless of the crisis being faced. Managing the flow of communications during a crisis can be the most crucial step taken to help your organization and its constituencies emerge from the crisis intact. Quite simply, have a plan. Anticipate what will happen when a crisis presents itself, and then develop a strategy for dealing with it. Branch out the consequences by detailing action that will be taken under varying circumstances. Assign specific jobs to specific staff. Stage mock crisis events and walk through the process. Then, evaluate how you performed. A number of Edwards' points are illustrated in the first part of our Crisis Communications Plan checklist, preparation before a crisis strikes. While each organization in crisis is different, there are some general actions that you'll want to take in preparing for a crisis and developing your crisis communications plan. Here are the first 5. Number 1, organizing a what-if brainstorming session with others. Consider different scenarios about potential crisis situations and create a general procedure for responding to the different possible crises. 2, select crisis management and crisis communication teams. Everyone in your organization should know who members of these teams are. Who fields phone calls? Who decides what to say to the media? Who is responsible for communicating with the media during a crisis? Number 3, identify key audiences. Determine to whom you want to communicate. This could be parents, students, local officials, or the general public. 4, designate a spokesperson. One person should answer all the questions and make all the presentations. This ensures that information comes from one source. This person should be trained to relay key messages. 5, anticipate the tough questions. Make a list of potential tough questions and be ready to respond to them. These are the first 5 steps in our Crisis Communications Plan checklist. I'm going to pause for a moment to give you the opportunity to review these guidelines. Has your organization or agency taken any of these steps? Identify gaps that you may need to address in order to prepare for a crisis.